Hi guys, today we are working on drawing out our leaf. We are going to start off with using a pencil, of course, and we want to make sure we have our eraser here. What I want to do is I want to make sure that my leaf is nice and big on my paper. If I drew it just like this, so obviously we don't want to trace it, but if I drew it just like this, it would be really small compared to the paper. I would have all of this extra white space. And so I actually want to make my drawing bigger than the leaf is in real life. But I still want to keep the same proportions that I have here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go towards the top of my paper here, and I'm looking at this top section here of my leaf. Okay, and I'm just going to start off with kind of mapping out where my leaf is going to go on my paper. And this helps ensure two things. One, that I draw it more correctly the first time, and second, that I don't draw the whole thing and then have to redo it, because I don't know about you all, but that drives me crazy. I hate that. That's like the worst thing for me, especially if you spend a lot of time and then you have to erase it. Heartbreaking. Okay, so what I do in order to avoid having that happen is I map out first. Okay, so the top of my leaf is probably going to go up here, and I don't want it on the very edge. Okay, but I want to give maybe an inch, half an inch or so, roughly, from the edge of the paper. That way, if this is framed later because it goes to the art show or you just frame it at your house, it's easier. You don't feel like you're cutting off something. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw sort of in the middle of my paper, the top kind of little shape that I have here. Okay, now I'm drawing very lightly because chances are this is going to move or change just a little bit, right? So I might end up moving it over a tiny bit. I might end up making it a little bit taller or a little bit thinner or wider, any of those things. Okay, so this is where the top of my leaf is going to go. Okay, down here, I'm going to look at the stem itself and then the bottom of the leaf. Okay, so in order to have enough space for the stem, kind of down this way, the bottom of my leaf is probably going to go right about here or so. Okay, and so the same thing, so this kind of angles down here. I actually want to bring this over a little bit. Like so. Okay, I still feel like that's not quite right, but I'll move it here in a little bit. Let's see, maybe here. There we go. That's better. So I have the general kind of bottom area of my leaf here. And again, these are very light sketches. That way, if I mess up, like I just did 3 times, I can easily erase those. Okay, and then I have the stem of my leaf, and it has kind of this like angle going on here like this. Okay, and again, I don't want it too close to the edge of the paper, but I don't want it super far away from the paper. Okay, so about an inch, maybe half an inch, depending upon how big your leaf is. Okay, now if you're drawing a leaf that is much bigger, like this one, okay, he already takes up a decent amount of paper, so you'll just make it a little bit bigger. This one, comparatively, is going to be a lot bigger. Okay, some of you guys might have a really big leaf that's the drawing's pretty close in size. Some of you might have a small leaf that you have to kind of blow up a whole bunch. Okay, so I have the top and bottom of my leaf. Now I'm going to kind of look at the sides and see about how wide my leaf is going to go so that I don't accidentally make it too skinny, or I don't start over here and make it too big and have part of my leaf kind of going off the page. Okay, because I don't want to cut off part of the picture. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to look over here, and I notice that it kind of bows out over here. So it's smaller, and then it's wider, and then it goes back to being smaller. So I'm going to say that maybe it kind of hits around here or so. Okay. And then same thing on this side here. So this one actually sticks out a little bit further, and then it gets a little smaller up here. So I'm going to kind of have this a little wider up on this side. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of bring it down here. Okay, this is just to help me with the sketching out of how wide my leaves are going to go. Okay, once I have it drawn out, I have my mapped out version of my leaf, I can start going in and adding some of the details. Okay, so for example, I might start on this side, and I might look at this negative space here and look at just kind of the shape that I see. Okay, so I noticed that this part right here is more angled and this part down here is a little bit more straight, it looks like. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure this kind of has an angle and then that this piece kind of goes straight here. Okay, and then I kind of have this little bit at the end, this like kind of texture here. And then this piece is very round, right? Like I feel like it's like a thumb space almost, right? Okay, so I'm going to keep that in mind while I'm drawing this part. So it comes inward here. Like so. Okay, and I'm kind of imagining my thumb as I'm drawing this, right? And it kind of comes out here like this. And then we have this little bit of like this edge area right here where it kind of comes down here and then comes back out here. Okay, and then this piece, it looks more of like a softened L shape where it kind of comes sort of straight down, it rounds the corner and then it goes downward. Okay, so this is going to go kind of straight down. It's going to round the corner a little bit and then angle downward like this. Okay, and then this piece, I'm drawing this little space right here. Right, so it kind of comes out here, angles in this way. And then this piece comes all the way back in here, right? So this goes pretty far, right? And so if I were to kind of sketch out where my vein might go to start off with, right? And I might change this a little bit, right? But if I have a general idea of where the vein is going through and connects to this, right? Then I can say, okay, this one, how far away from the vein is that? It probably hits around here. So I'm going to bring this in this way here. Now, one of the things that I figured out is while I'm drawing this, none of these lines are perfectly straight because as the leaves dry, they kind of wrinkle up a little bit. And so I don't want to make sure these lines here are really straight or else it will just look kind of weird. Okay, so I'm drawing lightly and notice it's thinner here and then it gets a little bit wider out here. So I kind of want to make sure I'm mimicking that too. So it's thinner on this side and then it's going to kind of angle out here. And I'm not drawing perfectly straight lines because I know that the wrinkles here are kind of involved. Okay, then I'm going to bring this back out here and notice this piece comes out further than this top part. So I want to make sure I have that here too. Right, so it's going to come out here just a little bit further. Then I have this kind of like it almost reminds me of like a C. So I'm going to kind of bring it straighter down here and then angle out this way like so. Maybe that needs to come out a tiny bit more. Okay, and then this piece here is going to, it looks like it kind of goes straight back before it turns into a rounded angle. And then we get a very like, again, kind of a C shape, right? So I'm going to bring this in here. And look, this one doesn't go nearly as far as this one. So I don't want to go all the way down here, but I do want to go a little bit more than halfway. So I'm going to bring this in here like so. Actually, you know, I think that this one here is a little bit too wide than compared to this one. So I'm not going to erase just yet. I'm going to fix it over here first and then I'll erase the lines that I don't want. Okay, so I'm going to bring this here just a little bit. And I'm going to say maybe it needs to come up here just a tiny bit. I think it's a small difference. We'll try this out. Okay, so then I'm going to come in here. So I'm using my old lines, my first lines, kind of as my guide because I feel like I had the general shape right. I just think that I made it a little bit wider than it should be. Okay, so now I'm thinning it out just a little bit. Okay, and it's going to come down about here. Okay, and then I have this little point down here. And then it kind of angles down here. Okay, now I'm feeling pretty good about this. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this line, my first line that I drew that I decided I didn't like. Okay, yeah, so it looks a lot better. Okay, and this little bit here. Okay, so I've got this one done. I'm going to go ahead and work on this side over here now. Okay, so I'm going to go through, I'm going to draw this out again. Same thing, I'm looking at the negative space. So that's the space that goes around the leaf. right? And I'm just kind of working on it and adjusting things as I go. Okay, so this one kind of comes down this way a little bit. And then it's not, it comes in a little bit, but not a crazy amount. So I'm going to bring it in just a tiny bit. And then this one, remember this was kind of thumb shaped, but on this side, it's more like a right angle that's been very rounded. Okay, so I'm going to keep that in mind while I'm drawing this part. The other thing I want to think about too is that this space here is actually a little higher than this one, so I don't want to go as far down as this one on this side. Okay, so I'm kind of looking at both sides of these while I'm doing this to make sure I have the right proportions, the right angles. Okay, so I'm bringing this through here, and I'm going to bring it kind of out this way here. Okay, and I'm using my guidelines here. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and draw this little section. I don't like that. So from my angle, it kind of looks like it has like a little tiny bump up. So I'm going to draw that a little bit more so here. Right, and then this section kind of comes down here. And it's a very subtle shape, right? So this, like, if we were imagining this as like a V shape, this is almost more like a check mark, where it's a little shorter and then it's longer here. Okay, so I'm thinking this part's going to be a little longer, this part's going to be just a little shorter. And it's kind of rounded. And then I'm going to bring this in here. Now, I'm comparing this here again with this little cut in right here. So this one is higher than this one is. So I want to make sure that I'm still going at the right angles, just like this. Okay, so it's still higher than this one. And it looks like it goes maybe about here compared to the middle part. Okay, and I'm going to kind of, oh, that's a weird shape. I'm going to turn my paper just a little bit because it's easier to draw that way. And then it kind of comes back up like this. Okay, so looking at that, I feel like that's pretty close. I might change it. Yeah, I think, okay, so I think that this one here needs to come down a little bit more like this here. And then I think I want to bring this down a tiny bit here. And I feel like that's too flared. I need it to be straighter. Okay, so I'm leaving my old lines until I've sketched out to where I like it. We'll see. I'm gonna come back to that. Okay, now this one again comes out a little bit further than this guy, and I luckily have my guidelines here. Okay, so this kind of comes out here a little bit and angles down here. I think that's too much. Let's try that again. So this is here. We're gonna bring it a smaller approach, a little bit here, and then it kind of comes down and angles in this way. And again, this part here is longer than this bottom part is. Okay, so I want to make sure that I have that in there. Like this. Okay, and then this piece, again, it's above here, right? So I'm going to kind of sketch in this section here, and this one kind of goes up this way. But it's lower than this one. I think I might still be a little bit too high up here. I think that's fine. Okay, moving on. So I have this last little section here, and I'm kind of working on this little shape that I have. So it comes down here, and then it kind of comes out this way. I made a little too C-shapey. And then it comes back here and kind of angles in. I still think I'm a little bit too high up here. Okay, so let's look. I think that this one needs to come in just a little bit more. And this one can continue up this way. Let's see. I'm gonna bring this out this way a little bit. And I think that I'm going to angle this one down just a little bit further. Okay, so it's gonna come down here just a little bit. And then it kind of comes up a little bit and then angles back down. I think that I need to make this, okay. So I'm gonna come back up to this one here. Let's work on this a little bit more. We're so close, guys. I think that this just needs to come down a little bit further. Yeah, because this point, if you look over here on this side, this point kind of comes up with this one right here. So I need to bring this point down a little bit more. Okay, which maybe means that this one needs to be just a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm gonna come back here. I'm gonna exaggerate this down here a little bit more. All right, so essentially I like the lines that I have. I'm just moving them down a little bit. So I'm bringing this out here. This kind of comes down this way, like so. Okay, and then I'm gonna follow this. So this bottom here kind of goes with this right here. So we're getting closer. That looks about right. Okay, and then again, I'm gonna bring this in here. I still think this top part needs to come out a little bit more. Okay, so we're gonna bring this in this way. We're gonna come back down here. Bring it down this way. All right, so that means that this one is gonna come out here a little bit more. We're gonna bring this down here. All right, okay, so I'm gonna go through and finish fixing this up, okay? What I'm going to do after that is I'm gonna go through and add in some details for the veins throughout here, right? So your veins might look a little bit different. You might have a lot of veins. You might only have a few easy to see veins, okay? But we're gonna sketch those in, okay? So I will be right back. Okay, so I have my leaf sketched out. I've sketched out all of the veins here. Okay, and then I've started to add in the shadows, right? So I'm looking at the shadows and I want you to kind of just be aware that what I see from my angle and what you guys are seeing in the camera is a little bit different because I'm not hanging directly like over the camera. I'm more from like the side view, kind of side/above. Okay, so my angle on these shadows are a little bit different. Okay, so if that's just in case you're like, why is she putting the shadow there? It doesn't look like that. Okay, so I've gone through and I've started on one side and worked my way all the way around on my shadows. Okay, so for me, the biggest shadow is down here in this section because down here, you guys can kind of see how low this shadow goes. And for me, there's like a little space here and then it gets darker right here. Okay, so this is a darker shadow and this is kind of a lighter shadow. And I don't really want to shade this in with my pencil because I'll be using colored pencil on this and they're different, of course. And so I want to pay close attention to that. I've sketched out all of the shadows that I have going around here. And a lot of times when you have a shadow based on the direction of your light, it's very similar to how a sphere looks. Right, is you have, your highlight areas, which we don't really see highlight on here, but our cast shadow is kind of in the opposite direction. So a lot of my shadows fall below the leaves and I don't really have shadows above the leaves where I'm at. Okay, your situation might be a little bit different, but most of mine falls kind of below the shadows here like this. It falls on the underside of the leaf. Okay, so you are going to finish this up. This is step number 1. Our next video, we're going to talk about how to start adding in some color, how to choose those colors and really look at what you've got going on, and start to kind of build those up the same exact way that we did with the sphere. Okay, so ta-ta for now.